What is going on in the world of cruising that you need to know about and why? I'm Gary Bembridge, and this is another of my Tips for Travelers cruise updates where I will be unpicking the biggest breaking cruise developments and news and discuss importantly what it means for all of us as cruisers. Now, before getting into some of the more surprising news, I do want to update you on the latest on the resumption of cruising. There are 5 big developments that I think you need to know about. So let's talk about those. First off, there is little sign that ocean cruising will be resuming in the United States, the UK, most of Europe and Australia anytime soon. So what is going on and why? Virtually all of the large popular cruise lines have recently pushed their hoped for startup dates to at least April, so lines like Carnival Cruise Line, Norwegian Cruise Line, MSC Cruises, but increasingly they've pushed them into May, such as has just happened with Royal Caribbean, Celebrity, Cunard, Holland America, Virgin Voyages, Princess Azamara, and so on. And even further, when you start to look at the dates by individual ship, these cancellations are happening. I expect the outlayers to follow those timings as well. There was huge optimism when authorities like the US CDC initially issued their framework for conditional sailing almost 3 months ago. That was then followed by the UK government agreeing the protocols for cruising towards the end of last year. Now, this optimism has withered, it's evaporated over the past few weeks and days due to the reluctance of any of those agencies to commit to any specific timing whatsoever. In fact, if anything, the cases, the lockdowns have strengthened the resistance to setting anything like a firm date. And we've also seen a real slowing down of the process towards resumption. Now, this was all confirmed by Carnival Corporation's president and CEO, Arnold Donald. He said this week in a call, which is covering their latest results, that there is no firm timeline of any kind for the restart of cruising out of the United States. He did say the dialogue with the US Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is ongoing, but it's moving extremely slowly. For example, he confirmed that the cruise lines have not yet received from the CDC any required technical details to be able to plan, let alone schedule the test cruises. These, of course, are required as part of the framework for conditional sailing. Test cruises are critical because they're one of the key stages in the return to cruise because they're designed to check and test all the various new protocols. In fact, he said, and I'm going to quote here, the CDC will make their determinations in a time frame that they feel comfortable with. We don't have a definitive date for any future guideline release, but we will be prepared to act. Now, on that point, the Carnival Group have returned 20 ships across their various brands into US waters to be ready to ramp up the process when they can. The second thing to note about timing is that even after test cruises are run, it's important to remember the CDC framework has a minimum 60-day period before the lines will be given a license to sail with paying passengers. This is to give them time to kind of evaluate and assess all those test cruises. So to start sailing in early April, which some of the lines have advertised, the test cruises would have to take place sometime in January. And that doesn't seem particularly promising from what Arnold Donald has said so far. The third thing to note is in the UK, the government maritime minister has completely rebutted any calls from the Cruise Line Association and lines to set a specific timeline for cruising to resume there. And of course, there is a ban on cruise ships entering places like Australia, Canada, and Spain. These are in force, and of course, we're waiting for news when they're going to be lifted. So already we're seeing some impact with things like Celebrity Cruises. They've cancelled their entire 2021 summer European season for Celebrity Edge and Celebrity Constellation already. The fourth thing to note about cruises resuming is there are actually less cruises operating now than there were in the last quarter of 2020 because the rapid growth of the virus and resulting lockdowns has meant that lines that were already running have cancelled a lot of sailings. So, for example, the Italian lines, MSC Cruises and Costa Cruises, and German lines like Mein Schiff and AIDA, they put their cruises on hold. Now, they do hope to return towards the end of January for some in February, some in March. So there are actually fewer cruises going now than there were at the end of last year. The only cruises still operating consistently at the moment are the cruises to nowhere in Singapore, Japan, and Taiwan, and also Aranui in French Polynesia, and of course some of the Hurtigruten coastal services in Norway. The fifth thing to note, which I think also shows more about what the Lions think around the actual return date will be, is a recent move by Cunard. The cruise line has reduced their final balance payments to just 30 days before departure for all cruises due to depart up to the 30th of June. Now, of course, by taking final payments closer to the departure date, it means if they cancel these, there will be fewer fully paid fares they need to be offering bonus future cruise credit to, and of course less funds to handle in and out. However, the end June date, which they said was due to the ongoing situation with COVID-19 and US and UK health departments, to me does suggest a lack of confidence that they will be able to resume Queen Victoria on the 17th of May, Queen Mary on the 28th of May, and Queen Elizabeth on the 4th of June. Now, to get the very latest on planned return dates, which do chop and change, you can visit my site at tipsfortravellers.com, and you'll find at the top of the site an article which is constantly updated with the current dates by month, by line, and increasingly by ship for both ocean and river cruising. So that's a good resource to dip into. Whilst many cruisers are focusing on the date that cruise lines are allowed to sail again, as important is also increasingly the amount of news on what countries and popular cruise ports are saying on the matter too. So even when cruise lines start to get the okay to sail out of, say, for example, US ports, they face a challenge on delivering and sailing advertised cruises, unless, of course, ports open to them. Now, there are three developments in this area that I think are worth you knowing about and noting. First off, if you recall, Key West voted to place limits on the size and the number of ships that could call there, excluding basically most medium and large ships. And yet, it still remains Key West as a port on many of the itineraries on sale today. This whole ban is about to be challenged in a bill submitted by Senator Jim Boyd to the Florida Senate. It's called Bill 426, the State Preemption of Seaport Regulations. It was filed on January the 5th, and it aims to give the state of Florida a final say over all the port regulations in the state. So it would prevent a local government like Key West from restricting or regulating who can and cannot call on any port in Florida. Now, if this bill is accepted for discussion, it's going to take place sometime after about March the 2nd. So definitely something to watch out for. But for now, the lines seem to be keeping Key West on advertised itineraries, but really important to bear in mind as you look at cruises ahead. Secondly, some Caribbean ports are coming out saying they do not intend nor expect to open to cruise ships during this year, 2021. The most significant of these so far is Grand Cayman. Now, the Premier Alden McLaughlin, he told the local news there that the return of cruise ships to the Cayman Islands is not on the government radar at all, and that cruises are unlikely to be allowed back until 2022. Now, he said, and I'm going to quote here, "The world would have to be a very different place relating to coronavirus before the government here would give any consideration to the return of ships to local waters. The cruise ship business is not really within our contemplation at this stage." The third noticeable and telling development to work around this is Carnival Cruise Line. They've just launched a brand new marketing campaign in the United States that actually promotes the benefits of their Half Moon Cay private island, and it doesn't refer to any other Caribbean ports of call at all. This is really interesting, I think, because there are, of course, those two big questions this year. One is around when ships will be allowed to sail again, and then once they do, where they will actually be able to sail to. Private islands provide a really good Caribbean experience. They have beaches, they have dining, they have activities, while of course keeping guests and everyone they interact with within a cruise created bubble, so the lines can control everything. They also, as they're counted as foreign ports, they fall within the US requirement that all cruisers have to call into a foreign port before returning back to the US. Looking at recently released 2022-2023 season itineraries for Carnival group of lines, there are also a lot of short Caribbean cruises with private island stops featuring really prominently. So definitely this seems to be a trend. So the issue of which ports will welcome cruisers, certainly as cruising starts up initially, is, in my view, going to become a really big topic once we get much more clarity on when cruising can run. It's also why many of the return to cruise plans appear to be involving lines scrapping advertised cruises and running local ports for local resident cruises. For example, round UK for UK residents, round Australia for Australians. Now this is of course what we saw Costa do in Italy for Italians, Ponant do around France for French, and so on. So there's certainly precedent as cruising opens up. Carnival Corporation announced this past week that I record this that they will now be disposing of 19 ships across their 9 brands. Now they've disposed of 15 so far, and so that is 4 more to leave, and we wait to hear the final list of those. All of the ships being disposed of, they say, are much less efficient than their more modern ships within the fleet, and so it does help them cut their costs per passenger. They're also slowing down delivery of new ships. They only took delivery of 2 ships in 2020, which I guess was Enchanted Princess and P&O Iona, but they're now saying they only expect 1 more ship to be delivered in 2021 versus those that have been delivered so far, compared to 5 ships that were originally scheduled for delivery. So definitely something to watch out for, as they did not say which of the ships planned for 2021 will be delayed as of yet. Once I know, of course, I'll include in a future update. Of course, with cruising being shut down soon for an entire year and longer, it's looking like the impact is huge, not only for the cruise lines who have been able to raise funds to survive. There is big impact on the supply chain. Associated companies and of course crew have all been suffering. Recently, one of the most popular independent cruise excursion companies, this is used by hundreds and hundreds of thousands of cruise passengers every single year as an alternative to cruise line tours. They basically went into receivership, owing a staggering $4.8 million to passengers for excursions that they paid for but did not happen. Now the company is called shoretrips.com. They filed for protection from the creditors, including the passengers, in Wisconsin. And the owners, Barry and Julie Karp, they're working with the court-appointed receiver, a company called Dizzard, to try and find a buyer as a going concern. And they're hoping they'll find a way of keeping the business going on once they get through this whole mess. However, where the passengers who had booked trips and are waiting for refunds with shoretrips.com will get all or part of their money back isn't certain at this stage. So I'll keep an eye on that, and of course let me know if you are one of them. Now if you found this update and what it means for you helpful, I have loads more Tips for Travelers episodes packed full of cruising advice and tips, so why not enjoy another one right now?